Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ike Mma show or the Ike Mma podcast, whichever you prefer. I'm joined in studio today with the condition nutrition man himself, Mr. Peter Miller. Peter, how you doing? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to having a good chat today.
This will be for me quite an insightful, sort of informative conversation and podcast with yourself, because it's going to be a lot of questions that I think you're like on the inside when it comes to combat sports, and I say that because the fighters and the athletes, even the coaches, might be on the inside, but I know because of the contracts and because of they are actively competing in a particular organization, especially if it's one like such as the UFC, there's
Yeah,
certain things that they cannot say, so
yeah,
they've got to keep certain things to themselves. But you yourself, you are a nutritionist for combat sports athletes.
yeah, yeah.
So, go ahead,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I work with guys in the UFC, one championship. Got a couple of world champion boxers too. So yeah, got quite a wide range of combat sport athletes on the roster at the moment.
Um, is there a particular gym that you're attached to, that you're based at?
No, so I've literally just moved back from Australia. So most of my work is remote online. So that's the good job. The good part about my job is I can connect with different gyms around the world and form good relationships. So I've actually moved back to the UK just because we've got quite a few guys fighting over the next couple of months and
I
just
see.
going to events, networking. The downside to Australia, as much as it's lovely weather and sunshine, it's a bit remote for the sort of fight scene, even though the UFC is actually in Perth where I live, but
Oh yeah.
but usually it's quite quiet.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've just come back to make more connections and catch up with the fighters that I work with over in the UK.
No, that's understandable. And Perth, I think Perth is going to be rocks this weekend with Volkanovski and God, I keep forgetting his name, though I should know off the tip of my tongue. Khabib's cousin.
Yeah,
Look
Islam,
it up.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be a big match. I mean, a big draw, both of them, especially Khabib's cousin. Those guys, once they get you on the ground, you're not coming back up again.
yeah. If it's gonna be pretty special, especially like that was my hometown for the last 5 years. So it's good to see that events are coming over to Australia and hopefully more in the future. That's the only potential downside to in Australia. It's so far away. No one wants to travel there. So luckily they've got the UFC this weekend, which the card's pretty stacked, to be fair.
So I always start I like to start from scratch as much as possible when I'm speaking with anyone that's affiliated with combat sports, whether that's a nutritionist like yourself, coach, uh, promoter, or even the fighters themselves. Um, can you give me a bit of just brief information about your background, as in where the story for you started, basically.
Yeah. So my story's a pretty long one, really. I was always a big fan of combat sports, sport in general. When I was a kid growing up, always competed. One of them kids who always competed in every sport possible. I left school with 0 grades. wasn't particularly interested in education or learning when I was younger. And then I finished school, and then I was working in like a small garden centre up until about 20, and then I had a bit of a kind of epiphany where I thought, I can't be doing this for the rest of my life. I need to have a bit of a plan. And then,
That's yeah.
with me passion for sport in general, I thought, well, I'll reset all my GCSEs and go back to college. And that's what I did. Went back, ended up doing a sports science degree. After the first year, I thought, oh my God, this is like really, like, sports science is like super hard and like maybe a bit out my depth here, but ended up doing really well in my first year. Thought, well, this is something that I'm getting more and more interested in. So ended up finishing my sports science degree, did a master's in sports nutrition, and yeah, as soon as I finished, I thought, well, I'll set up my own business and start working with athletes and probably a lot of people know, when you first start off a business, it doesn't go quite as smoothly
No,
as
of course, yeah.
as that. So it took quite a few years to get things going, and yeah, I started working. I moved to Australia not long after finishing my master's degree, and set up my condition nutrition business. Was on Instagram posting generic, fitness facts, tips, hints and stuff, and I wasn't really making a full-time income off it. And then I had a couple of fighters messaging me online saying, "Do you do weight cuts for fighters?" Started doing that, and then just ended up going from recommendation to fully specializing now in the combat sports space, and been really lucky to work with some really top draw fighters. And yeah, it's a job where I'm very grateful for, and it's constantly learning, evolving, and improving. And yeah, I'm really lucky to be in the space.
Well, if you say some top names in mixed martial arts, especially here in the UK scene, that they came to you, one would assume that then you must be good at your craft, that they've seen what you do, they've seen the results of the work that you do with your other clients. More than likely, it must have attracted them and suggested to them that this guy knows his stuff, he knows what he's doing. Let me get you advice, and you can help me prepare for this competition I've got coming up in the next month or two.
Yeah, 100%. I think with anything with business, it's when you first start off, the hardest part is getting your name out there. And once you start, getting a sort of higher level client, or like someone who's at the top of the game, it sort of becomes like a snowball effect. Once you have one guy who's a top level fighter, and then it just goes from there. And I'm really lucky for the people I work with now, and they put the trust in me. And with the beauty of working with fighters too is these are guys who constantly are wanting to evolve, improve every day. So that makes me up my game. Think, well, I need to keep on my toes and keep on improving and evolving my game and my practice. So it's a really good space to work in.
Excuse me. So the nutrition and fitness side of things, as in, how did you move from, as in, I'm trying to go from your background, as in, how did you, as in, get into that? I mean, is it necessarily because this is basically nutrition and fitness and conditioning is a bit about keeping healthy. Did that attract you more than probably pursuing the actual combat sporting routes long term? Did the nutrition and fitness probably seem more appealing to you?
As in like competing myself as a
Well, out of the two, it looks like you've gone down the route of fitness and nutrition, which is, I think, if you summarize it together, it's about keeping healthy and keeping fit. Did that attract you more than pursuing the route of being a mixed martial arts athlete or combat sports athlete?
Yeah, well, for me, I only trained, out of sort of enjoyment and getting fit. I never was at any kind of like any kind of decent level. I was one of them guys in school where I kind of played every sport: football, rugby, did a bit of Thai boxing, a bit of jiu-jitsu. So it was never really a thing where I was ever going to get into that. But with doing the degree, originally when you do a sports science degree, once you finish, you've got the option of, you can go down different paths. You can go maybe the strength and conditioning route, or you could go down to physiotherapy route, or physiologist. And I always had a passion for the nutrition side of things. So that's when I did a master's degree and really dialed in on sports performance nutrition. And yeah, but the good thing about nutrition is it's especially in combat sports, 10, 15 years ago, the research wasn't there in combat sports. Yeah. If you wanted to look at research for a football player, rugby player, you could find hundreds of, really well studied, really well controlled studies on supplements, carbohydrate recommendations, etc. But combat sports there wasn't anything. But now it's grown. Like the FCPI are putting a lot more research out there. There's more studies on combat sports, so it's constantly an evolving space, which is beneficial for the fighters now. You know, in the past, a lot of the nutrition advice would come from, you know, passed down from the coach did this and his coach did it this way and his coach did it this way, and the majority of the time it was not necessarily the right practices. But luckily now that research is coming out, so we can adopt them practices with the fighters.
So when it comes to weight cutting, you know, they say a lot of athletes and people associated with combat sports as a whole, they say that the weight cut is the most difficult one. I mean, you might have the exceptional case whereby you got to make weight going upwards, probably be heavier than what you naturally are.
Yeah.
But I was always been told, and it's clear to see, the weight cutting is always the most difficult part of preparing for any competition, combat sports wise.
Yeah, well, 100%. Yeah, you know, because you've got two sorts of you know, you've got the fight that you're competing, so you get your training to beat the opponent, but also you've got the side where you have to make weight. So you got two things to deal with in that scenario. But a lot of, you know, unfortunately, on the education side of things, what I've gone back to, you know, a lot of fighters aren't educated on how to do the weight cutting process properly. So a lot of the times they're cutting too much weight, or they're not feeling themselves enough for training. So that whole fight camp just becomes, you know, 10 times worse than the you know. And when it actually gets to the fight, they've had such a bad time during a fight camp. The main focus has been getting that weight down, not the actual opponent itself.
Yeah. No, I've seen some, as in, well, let's say horror stories. Some female fighters in the UFC, they stepped on the scale on weigh-in day, and they've literally just collapsed.
Yeah.
Another case that I've heard of, and it stuck with me ever since. There was an Irish fighter competing in Ireland, and he was part of the Clan Wars promotion, and he has told me that there have been cases, I think, was he referring to himself? But he has said that some people have lost so much weight, been in such a severe calorie deficit, that they've even been able to hear their own brain vibrating in their skull.
Yeah, it's quite scary. Like you've as I said, you've probably seen videos on YouTube on big weight cuts, and I think a lot of time people seeing it as like I won't say a badge of honor, but like this is what has to be done. It is what it is. This is what you have to do as you're a fighter, and that's not the case. You know, now there tend to be a lot, especially like the UFC, there tends to be a lot less people missing weight. There's people who've cut on less, who've not cutting as much weight now, because there's professionals there guiding them to do it the right way, and also educating them and go, okay, you know, back in the day, someone will go, well, it still happens now. People go, well, I fight at 70 kilos, but I walk around at 90. I was like, okay, is that an optimal body weight? Is it an optimal fight weight? Sorry for you. Oh no, but that's what I've always fought at, and that's what the coach tells me to fight that. It's like, okay, well, you know, you're really struggling to get to that weight. That's probably not the best weight class for you. So it's getting that education for the fighter, getting some assessments in, and saying, you know, body composition assessments, and really advising the fighter right, you know, for the benefit of your health and your career, you know, educating them like maybe you need to compete at a higher weight class.
I'm going to be a little bit controversial now. You're a Liverpudlian. You're from Liverpool.
Yeah,
Your accent, sorry, your accent obviously gives you away. So obviously you know Shamrock BJJ.
Yeah.
You know Dean Garnett.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you obviously know Paddy Pimbless, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, in Paddy's own case, you know, him being a big draw in the UFC, especially on this side, over here in the UK, people have mentioned and they've kind of commented that once he's out of, let's say, fight season, when he's not competing, he balloons. And
yeah,
when he's when he is fighting, he shrinks down. Now, and he's done it at least 2 or 3, 4, 5 times now.
yeah.
Um, is that healthy? I'd naturally assume to go for you to go up in weight so severely and then go down weight again so severely. That's not good for your health overall. And over time, as you're getting older, you will start to see and feel the side effects.
Yeah. So there's two sort of caveats to this. One, like Paddy actually does work with a nutritionist. And apparently he doesn't balloon up as much as people make out. He just tends to. He definitely does put on the weight. You can see that clearly, but apparently he doesn't put on as much weight as people think. I think he's just one of them people that tends to go to his face and his cheeks.
Okay.
But there's definitely downsides to continuously the yo-yo dieting process where you're losing large amounts of weight, you're putting it back on again, losing amount like, and you're always starting your next camp. But the first few weeks are always a fat camp. The focus is getting the weight down, not actually, oh, okay, we need to do some skill development here, or we need to focus on a bit of a tactic for the opponent that we're facing. So
Oh,
there is definitely downsides to that, and also it just makes the whole process harder each time because you're putting on, say, for example, I'm going to use Paddy, for example, say he fights at 70, then he balloons up again to 80, then he dies back down to 70, but then next time he puts on a couple of extra key, then he's 82 kilos, so he's just putting on that little bit more weight each time, which obviously makes having to diet down more, be more aggressive with the calories when he's in fight camp. So it's just, like I always say to the guys I work with, like, look, like, I get it with a fighter, win, lose, draw. It's been a taxing process, the whole fight camp experience, the training, the food, the weight cut, and you do want to go and enjoy yourself. You want to, have that pizza that you haven't had the whole camp, or you want to have that drink. I get that, but there's got to be a point where you go, okay, we've indulged a little bit now. Now it's time to get back into some kind of structured routine, because as I said before, it makes that, you do get that call up. You're not like, oh shit, I've got 15 kilos to lose now. You're ready to go. You're enough ready to go. I've got guys where we try and adopt a bit of a call, like a reverse diet. It's a concept which is used quite a lot with bodybuilders when they've done a competition, and to slowly increase the calories post fight, so they're not ballooning up straight. They're not ballooning up. They're just slowly increasing the calories. They're putting on that weight, and they're not putting on as much fat mass. So we try and adopt that with guys post fight. But obviously, it's difficult, as I mentioned before. Win, lose, or draw. Sometimes people want to go out and and enjoy themselves, but adopting some kind of good practices post fight, because then when they do get the call up, the body composition wise, they're in a good place and they can start the fight camp, not a fat camp.
no, no, of course. It's one thing that they say that people who do go on these, I think in reality, you've got to make it a lifestyle choice.
Yeah,
You got
100%.
to try and stick to it and try and do it for life. I mean, you will have periods in between birthdays and celebrations, Christmases and holidays where you want to indulge and enjoy yourself. But I think you do have to make it a lifestyle choice, and it brings me on to another question, which, if any lefties or Karens are listening to this or watching this, they might have a go at me in the comment section. But do you think that the issue with say in the UK, obesity is, do you think it's a mental problem, or do you think people are just lazy to lose the weight? My God, I think I've put you on the spot here, haven't I?
That's a very good question. I'm not I'm not sure. So I'll give you a bit of a different viewpoint on it. I I've lived in Australia for the last 5 years, on and off the last 5 years. And from what I've seen from like living in a warmer climate, people's
Yeah.
mentality to go out and exercise is so much different. Like you'll go, I'm not saying this is fully the reason, but when you've got nice weather and you're living in a nice climate, you're more inclined to get up and be active. Like
Yes. Yeah.
I'll go to my local, there's a coastal walk where I used to live, and you go there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's absolutely like someone's running a marathon, like packed, like people all ages. And I think in terms of like the UK, I think there's when, for example, the winter, it's dark at 5 o'clock. There's the emphasis of like going, oh, do I really want to put my shoes on and get up and go and
Yeah.
go for want to go for the walk? It is an excuse, don't get me wrong, but I feel like from just living in two different climates, I think definitely the environment makes a massive difference in people's attitudes to exercise.
Yeah. No. Of course. Even okay, even over here in the UK, when I think even when it's summer, middle of summer, when it's supposed to be very hot and sunny, you
Yeah.
do get a lot of people out and about more, as in staying out for work, not even just exercise, but socializing,
Yeah.
going for
On
walks.
social media, you
Yeah,
see on social media, people are like, they're going for a hike or they're going for this, but when it's the winter, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's I just want to stay in. Like,
mm,
obviously it's a lot more complex than that, but that's just the thing that I've sort of got my brain ticking over the past couple of months, just thinking, you see people, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's like, as I said, it's like a marathon. Like it's like the Perth Marathon's on the coastal walk in the morning, and you just people are just up active. They're going for
mm.
swims. There's a lot more active things to do there. So I think, you know, would that be different over here if the weather was that? Yeah, it's just, yeah. As I said, it's not. It's just a theory that I thought in my head.
Um, okay. This is why it may sound really controversial, but gonna try and not to be so controversial. Now, in combat sports, again, because I was glad to have this conversation with you because you're like someone's working the inside, but you're not tied to keep quiet about certain things.
Yeah,
Um, and people out there will say, "What a stupid question," but okay, I'm gonna ask you anyway.
yeah.
The usage of PEDs in combat sports, is it really as prevalent as what I hear that this fighter has been juiced to the gills and that fighter's been taking PD since whatever, whenever?
So in my experience, and I've worked with probably 300 plus fighters now. That's never been a thing that's been brought to my attention. Um, do I believe that it does go on? 100%. I think the thing with smaller organizations or local shows, regional shows, there's no drug tests, and there's no one there drug testing anyone. So if you really wanted to, I suppose you could be juiced up to the eyeballs and getting the cage ring, and no one would really know. Um, but yeah, that's actually a good question. Do I think it's prevalent? I'd say from what I've seen people at weigh-ins, and I've looked at them, and I've gone, there's potential that the potential on something, but obviously that's a big claim. They might be might be one of them anomalies where they're in awesome shape, but I definitely think it does go on. I just don't think it would happen as much in the bigger organizations. I'll just with USADA and the drug testing, especially like the UFC, the One Championship, boxing organization. These guys get drug tested quite a lot, so I don't think they'd get away with it.
I still consider myself to be quite a lay person in the combat sports. So that's just why I'm always careful about what I say. But for someone like yourself, just looking at parts of how their overall physique and how they're performing in the cage, octagon of the ring, are there any telltale signs to spot that this person probably has used something in the run up, in the lead up to this competition?
That is a very good question, and I probably couldn't give you an answer for that. I think it's very difficult to really determine that. Yeah, I think it'd be quite hard. Like, say for example, well, if you hadn't seen, I think one potential telltale sign is if you were following a fight over a certain period of time, and their physique had suddenly just drastically changed. Like, with a good training program, nutrition plan, you can get some extraordinary changes in your body composition. But if it looks to the point where it's absolutely like, the guy, the guy had, now looks like he's twice the size, and he's ripped to the eyeballs. It doesn't look like he's got a pig of fat on him potentially. But I think it's very, it's an area where it's very, it's it's very hard to determine, and it's a sort of a touchy subject where you can't really you can't really accuse someone without
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, in terms of your answer to that, I think maybe just observe, like, if you've seen someone's physique over a certain period of time, like their physique has drastically changed within 6 months,
Yes.
then potentially. But yeah, it's very hard to determine. Sorry, I couldn't give you a really definitive answer
No,
there.
no, I can understand that because it's one of those things it's quite hard to tell. They'll find signs maybe there, but you can't say for sure unless the person so actually openly admits it to you and gives you admission to
And
taking
I think
such
I think
substances.
I think it's one of the things as well where I know the area of, like, um little bits of the area on, like, steroids and stuff, but I think it's quite hard for someone who's not. I think, for example, someone who was a nutritionist in the bodybuilding physique space, they probably get a better eye than someone who's just in my space, but that's not really a thing that comes to my thoughts, if that makes sense.
No,
Um,
I
but
understand.
maybe someone who was in that space may notice something differently. But as I said, there's so many factors, and without actually getting drug tested, you can't really make any sort of
Yeah.
claims.
Um, the one last thing I may ask you is the which is related to the PEDs. Now Conor McGregor, the last fight he had, which was against Dustin Poirier back at the UFC 264. Now it was extraordinary how that his leg just gave way and he just collapsed to the canvas of the of the cage. Now, would you say that's because of what we call, or what they say is ring rust, or he's just been very inactive? He hasn't been training enough to get ready for that fight, that his body is almost like deteriorating.
That's actually a very good question, and it could be a mixture of all them factors. Could be a
Yeah,
mixture of the factors where, the inactivity, um, you know, might have caused a niggle in training, or something's happened in training. I think it'd be very hard to determine that, because um you've probably seen a few times in the UFC where people have broken the legs, and you
yeah,
know they've been trained, like they've had the best fight camp they've ever. There's a guy who was the Australian version of say Cage Warriors. It's called Eternal, and one of the champions, who was based in Perth, he was the champion at lightweight. First round in a fight, goes for the kick, his leg breaks, and, like, it's just one of them things where,
mm,
you know like, you could plan the best fight camp plan ever, or do the best strength and condition. Sometimes it's just in the luck of the gods where things like that happen.
for me, the situation whereby the person's leg breaks when they try to perform the leg kick.
Yeah,
I was in you don't ever think that the human body can actually, as in that is possible, unless of course you've maybe been involved in an accident and you break your leg. But I mean, I think I know the situation you're talking about. The opponent checks the leg kick and the the other guy's leg actually just breaks literally in half and they fall to the floor.
yeah, yeah. It was
Uh,
it wasn't nice to see it. Like, it wasn't.
no.
I read, like, he's actually a really nice fella as well. It was like it
Mm,
wasn't nice to see, definitely.
no. Okay, gradually rounding up. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira at UFC 287. Who do you have winning that fight?
Um, That's a good question. I feel like he's gonna win. I feel he's got. I feel he will. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
decision. I don't think he'll.
Get away with
No,
knockouts.
I don't. I think it'll go to decision. I think it'll be just a tactical slick performance by him. I think.
Okay. And not to repeat his name, but Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Who do you see taking the win away from that?
I think Michael Chandler. I think. To be honest, I think obviously Conor McGregor in his prime. I'd say yeah. But I just think maybe just that inactivity
Yes, yes, yeah.
catch up on him in the end, and especially MMA is a sport where it's a young man's game where you have a bit of inactivity. There's only certain circumstances like when George St. Pierre came back. It's and especially with the his injury, it's a hard one. But I probably put my money on Chandler.
Yeah, I can kind of see the fight going that way probably. I mean, Chandler is ferocious, has a ferocious stand up in the cage.
Yeah,
And Conor McGregor, yeah, he's been inactive for a very long while now.
yeah.
So before we round up, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? Family, friends, business partners, or athletes?
That's actually a good question. Trying to think of anyone specific that need to just a shout. I suppose it's just a shout out to everyone who follows me page, who likes me content, who works and puts the trust in my content. Yeah, very very grateful for everyone to put the trust in me. Can't think of anyone that specific, but yeah, just anyone who follows my page and me fighters that work with me. I'm yeah, certainly grateful for that.
No, Gus, you have a significant following on Instagram. I think you've got about what 16, 17,000 followers on there. So you've got quite big following. So your content must be very good and very successful and does work for them a lot. So you are definitely, well, your hard work is paying off. So congratulations and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you.
Guys, if you did enjoy the podcast, if you did enjoy this episode, don't forget to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also catch the podcast on the audio platforms of Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. And Peter, definitely we'll have to get you back on the show again at some point. You definitely seem very knowledgeable, especially about the fitness and the conditioning.
Thank you.
So I have
Thank
to
you.
get you back on here.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you so much and
Thank you,
take
mate.
care.
Yeah.
See ya.